in here and you've been running a daycare essentially, and we don't really it's an apathy award. And at some point, it's not everybody else's fault. At some point, with those players that I rattled off, both in San Diego and here in Colorado, 2 playoff wins in 17 years, that's a joke, man.
Yeah, I think me and you are. I just don't feel as strongly about that. I just don't. I just think that he is, for whatever reasons, and I don't know every single detail of his teams in San Diego. But what I do know is, if your players aren't up to snuff, I don't really care who the manager is. Like, Bill Belichick didn't win a doggone thing as soon as Tom Brady left New England. He's a great coach, but if you don't have the players to be able to that perform for you, then I don't know what to say. Like, you're not going to ultimately win as much as you want to win. And even in those instances with the Rockies being having really good young talent and the San Diego Padres having a talented team, they were not the most talented teams in the NL in those years.
Russ goes, Raj, you're not this critical of Bednar, who hasn't done much with elite rosters outside the finals run. He won a freaking championship. There's a reason why I'm not as critical of Bednar and Malone in this situation, because they won championships. And not only did they get to the playoffs in subsequent seasons, they've gone through extra rounds in all of those seasons. Black, even with elite talent on his roster, granted, in let's call it 20% of the seasons that he's managed, maybe a little bit less. I can go as low as 15%, 10% of those seasons to have elite players on his roster. He won 2 playoff games in 17 years. So again, it's a good accomplishment, I guess. But I can't sit here and put him as like, oh yeah, he's the best manager in Rockies history. It's just it's simply not the case. The conversation between Bednar and Malone and Black is not the same thing. They won. Yeah, and Bednar did it with statistically. So I'm going to go after Russ here, because Russ, you're being a Nimrod right now. Elite rosters. Bud hasn't had elite pitching, but he had elite hitting and defense. He didn't have elite pitching. You know what Bednar did? Bednar won a Stanley Cup championship with an elite roster and statistically the worst goaltending since 1986 in the National Hockey League to win a cup. So don't come at me with that if you haven't done the research. Those two conversations are not the same thing. He had an elite roster and well below average goaltending. Bud Black had the same thing, well below pitching. Elite defense and offense in some of those seasons, and he won a game in the playoffs. It's not the same conversation.
I'll just ask you a question. Was that Rockies roster better than Bednar's Avalanche roster that won a cup?
No, it was not better. But not all rosters are the same. Not all champions are the same. You can win championships with non-elite rosters. Look at the New York Giants under Eli Manning. Things happen.
That's an any given Sunday thing, and they still had good talent. You can't win anything without talent in any sport. That is it. No,
so you're telling me Nolan Arenado, Trevor Story, Charlie Blackmon, and Carlos Gonzalez are devoid of talent?
I'm telling you that.
What are we doing?
Raj, that wasn't a championship caliber team. It just wasn't. You're telling me that team should have been in a World Series? Just say it.
No, they should have won more than a game in 8 years underneath him.
How far should they have got? That team should have gotten in the playoffs.
They should have won more than a game. It's not. That is not a level. The bar between those franchises and the Rockies are different.
Who'd they lose to?
They lost to the Brewers in that second season.